Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. Not surprisingly, the volume after Christmas on my website goes up dramatically, which we all know because people are doing holiday stuff. And it's virtually the same every year. I mean, it doesn't vary. People are taking time. And in fact, the volume starts going down about the 10th of December, and it really doesn't peak up until about the 7th, 8th, or 9th of January, because that's when the corporations and or the financial professionals start to shut down. Right now, I'm working on 3 deals that when they close, they'll close probably the last day of the year, which is not unusual. But for those of you that went to school, and those of you that got even bad grades, normally you don't start studying until the day before or hours before the exams are due. Well, it's not dissimilar to doing deals, unfortunately. And the guys and the gals, all of a sudden, oh shit, there's only 5 days left in the year. And they go to the whip. Of course, if you hadn't been pushing the professionals all the way along, and if you haven't been pushing the motivated seller, you made that request or that demand, or you screaming may fall on deaf ears. And it quite often does, and then it doesn't close. And then you figure out another reason how to step on your dick so the deal doesn't close at all. I was taught that you never extend. I don't believe in extension of LOIs, because if I don't keep this data, but I'm pretty sure that the data will show that maybe 50 to 75% of the extension of LOIs get completed, not 100. I was taught that you have no extensions of when you're going to go IPO. You don't give a shit. I mean, as you recall, I did it on my birthday because I wanted to do it on my birthday. And because early in my career, because I set goals with time limits. And I said I was going to be filthy rich by the time I was 40. So I said, well, why not 39? And so on my 39th birthday, we went public. But unfortunately for me, thank you, Maggie Thatcher, in her infinite wisdom, was privatizing Jaguar on my birthday. And everybody, and you know the story, everybody and his brother, all the professionals, one, because it was in the middle of summer and nobody wants to work in August, okay? 2, a better excuse or better reason is that Mrs. Thatcher is privatizing, and I believe it was one of her first privatizations, was privatizing Jaguar. And in theory, a good portion, if not all, the institutional money would be sucked out of the system for that privatization, because Mrs. Thatcher was not popular with the common folk necessarily, but she certainly was popular with the financial community. And so they wanted to postpone it, and I said, no, we're not postponing the fucking thing. So, but the holidays and the summer, trying to get a deal done in Spain or Portugal or Greece during the summer, July and August, is hard, because everybody is on their permanent siesta, or whatever the Greeks call it. But it's not that easy, much easier in London. But the Americanization of the city or the financial district in the UK has weighed heavily and had the Brits work longer hours during the summer than they would like to. And it's the Americanization, or the Americans, or the American work style or work ethic that has changed finance. Just as Trump has changed finance. Just as Trump has changed politics, even though they've undone a great deal of what Trump did when Biden got elected. And you have come in the last 3 or 4 years into a less relaxed environment than we had here in Europe 20 years ago. Yet 20 years ago, they got more deals done. And all the data and all the research that we do or have done gets back to the guys in the 90s and the early 2000s, got more stuff done with not a fraction of the material, not a fraction. I hate to use the word toolbox, but without a fraction of the tools in that toolbox And we discussed, and I pointed out, beating my chest, why. Now, whether you were in the 90s, the 2000s, or the 2020s, this is the only thing that counts. You're going to be judged by your results, and your board will judge you how soon you get results. And when the kids lose board members, it's because they lollygagged along, and you didn't keep them informed. We've had kids that, God forbid, took 2 years to do a deal, but they kept their boards informed. So the boards didn't think they were left out in the cold. I got an email from a chief information officer of a big techie thing. And he said, I haven't had any information in 18 months. I can only assume that we died a natural death. And it was quite poetic what he said. And then within about a day and a half, we got emails. And I'm not on the board anymore, but I'm still was listed because this is one of my alleged proteges. And 4 or 5 people resigned because they hadn't been kept in the loop. When you don't keep in touch with the boards and you don't keep them up to date, even though you don't think you've done anything, they think the deal's dead. And in some cases, they may even take other positions on other boards. And then even if they liked you, which I don't like to use that word, and even if they like the project, and again, I don't like to use the word like, they've got a conflict now. And legitimately, it's the you in the equation's fault. So now they're only looking at results. Well, life is that way. You can't buy a house or a condo or a flat unless you made some money, right? And everybody's complaining about, not everybody, the millennials are complaining about not being on the property ladder. And I've used the property ladder for 2 other analogies early on, and I don't see that myself. You kids that are millennials or thereabouts have bought houses at the same time frame that the millennials are complaining about not being able to get on the property ladder. I have 2 mentees right now, both looking at $8 million, one $8 million, one €8 million house, both on a lake. I don't know what it is about a fucking lake. They don't have a boat, but they're looking on houses on a lake. And I don't know what it is about 8 million, but it's certainly better than the cold water flat means in the old days you were in a flat with no refrigerator and you put your milk out on the windowsill, and that was your refrigerator. So when you go by a Ben Laden slum, you'd see milk, cheese, salami on all the windows outside. And now that's not a very nice look. And I'm hoping that you don't have that, Abdul. But so now not everybody, but most of the people are complaining about millennials not getting on the property ladder. So what do they do with their money? They save 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 grand, and they buy crypto fuck. And that's going to be their quantum leap to property. And unfortunately, they buy it at $59,000. And it goes to $34,000. Now I only hear the stories about the $59,000. I rarely hear the story that they bought it at $34,000 and it went to $59,000. If, in fact, they did what Andreas did starting 2 years ago, about today, his first deal, he certainly got enough money to get on the property ladder. And even though he's one of the guys looking at the €8 million house on a lake in some fucking place, I like to say Bavaria because I know Bavaria better, but it's not in Bavaria, it's up in the north. And I look on a map, I don't see many lakes. So how big could the fucking lake be? But anyway, that's a whole other story. It's not the cure-all. It's not the, guilty edge panacea, QLA. But if you do it right and you follow the steps, in 2 years, you can build up to your account 30 million euros. Now, he has acquired 45 million euros in another way. And even though he has a great majority of the deal, those 45 million euros aren't his. He's got to perform with those 45 million euros, and he really has to perform with hundreds of millions of euros, really. But if Andreas quit today, he liquidated to a private equity, which he's already been approached. he'd walk away before taxes with about 30 million euros in about 24 months. So that's a little more than €1 million a month, which is better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. Some of you came into the QLA program, if you want to call it that, at about the same time he did. And he's not my poster child. He's not in the middle. He's in the top third. He might even be in the top quarter. But if you're in the top quarter and you made, to your own account, more than €1 million a month, that's what's possible. But it's one thing being an upper average QLA bot, because that's not an average person. Because that upper third or upper quarter QLA bot is a multimillionaire after 3 transactions. 2 transactions, in his case. But somehow, the kids, for sure, that are on YouTube, don't equate that. Because Bitfuck was up, I don't know, $4,000 yesterday or $5,000. I forget what it is. Because I saw it was 50 grand. And the last time I looked, it was 45 grand. And so they say, well, it went up 10% in one day. More or less, that's true. That's not more or less true. That is true. But so what? So what? Now, you're judged on results, and to the extent that you are successful, you get what I used to call a battlefield promotion. Andreas has gone from a pretty highly priced investment analyst, which gave him no clue to do QLA, to multimillionaire in 24 months. So he'd probably be like maybe a colonel. He'd go from private to colonel. And for the guys that have made more money, like Thomas McGuire, he's, in a little more than 2 years, 30 months, he's made about 70 or 80 million. So he's some sort of general now. And unfortunately, Thomas, you act like a fucking cocky young general now. And it's not that I want you to remember where you started, but you guys too easily forget where you started, and all of a sudden you're fucking Moses. Now, I walk on water. You don't yet. But, but the kids don't think this through. Just as I pointed out in your presentation, some of them, and with the assistance of a couple of the guys, 2 or 3 of you that are more experienced, you pointed stuff out that are overlooked. And if you didn't overlook them, it's because you made them more complicated, and the system is simple. The templates are simple. The templates are short for a reason, because you don't want to give them too much information. All you want to do is give them, and we're not hiding stuff, give them enough information to say, yes, I'm interested. And then, you go to the next templates. Now, these people, some are generals, and it's I'm not going to beat my chest about how sad it is. I got to cover their fucking face because of facial recognition. But we've got on the your left-hand corner, somebody that's created about 600-700 million to his account in 40 months. Next to him, or below him, we've got a guy who took a little longer, ex-cop, who created 100+ million to his account. Next to him, we have somebody that's created about $1 billion to his account. Next to him, we've got a young kid that's created about 70 million to his account. Next to him, we've got a guy that turned 20 grand into 70 million in 7 months. Next to him, we have a billionaire couple. It took them about 10 years. So, they're not one of my stars, but I can talk about them because they're not going to sue me for talking about them. Above him, we have a guy that didn't show up because he's got corona, but we're going to talk to this afternoon live. Next to him, we have a teenage multimillionaire that now I can use his picture. Before I couldn't use his picture. And next to him, we have the couple that you talked to a few days ago that went from 5 employees to 850 employees, went from less than $1 million in turnover to 120 million in turnover. This is all, and we didn't have time to put up the picture of another guy that did the first cannabis financing in Canada and has done, several $100 million in cannabis transactions and financing. This is all in recent years, the last 3 or 4 years, since you came to the seminar. There's not an Einstein up there. There's a couple bright ones. Bright meaning high IQs. Maybe not as high as my IQ, but high IQs. There's a couple a couple of the smarter people in the room would think that are slow, thick, but they're still 40, 50 million, 80 million, 120 million euros, dollars, pounds ahead of you. Now, what industry were they in? Because I can already see in your eyes, well, fuck, they must have been, I'm in tech. I'm in cyberfuck. And what I'm doing is harder. I can already see it in your eyes. You're trying to discount, and I don't even have Josh up here. You're trying to discount like Josh was Michelangelo. They weren't. Starting from the left to the right, conglomerate, property management, IT, hospitals. Moving down, healthcare, IT, transportation, conglomerate, and property management. Only a couple are healthcare. How can that be? Dan says healthcare is the knees bees or bees knees or whatever it used to be called. And if we went down to 5 or 10 million that they made, we'd have more healthcare. Because a lot of people would rather know they're going to make 5 or 10 million, more, not 100%, but 75, 80%, than venture out into something that they would get higher multiples and make more money. I told you that this last Corona 2022 months has been the best closing that we've had. We're up about 95%. We're actually up more than 100% now. But since I know we took the numbers and we're 95%, 95.1%, I'll use that until we recalculate all the numbers. But it's there, guys. Oh, and how many went to hardcore? That's another question. Were you thinking that, Doomkopf? Of course. Okay, starting at the top. Hardcore, no hardcore, no hardcore, hardcore, no hardcore, hardcore, no hardcore, hardcore, no hardcore. For the ones that went to hardcore, probably half of them benefited from the hardcore. They all benefited, but benefited enough to get a deal done quicker. Because a shoe dropped, a penny dropped, something fit in, they were able to connect another set of dots. We got plenty of people that attended hardcore that didn't do shit. But normally we get a burst after a hardcore. The last hardcore, 17 deals were done, not overnight, but almost overnight. Because either out of shame, guilt, or brains, I don't care which one it is really, all of a sudden you just connected the dots and went out and were more rude, maybe, more or less passive to your motivated seller. Because I used to think, when they wasted my fucking time, and all we have is time. When they wasted my time, I got angry. And of course, when I get angry, I show it. When I was about 30, I thought I had an ulcer, but I didn't. And I said, you give ulcers, you don't get them. And it's acid indigestion backing up and all this stuff because you're not releasing your inhibitions. Well, I don't know. There's an inhibition I have not released 1,000 times. When I read the book, Jim Newman, who was my mentor, Release Your Brakes, I thought it meant something else. Till I got into the book. And Jim contends, and I agree 1,000%, that we are like we're a car that has the emergency brake on. And then all of a sudden, but now you can't drive because as soon as you put it in the drive, the emergency brake comes off, most cars. But in the old days, it didn't. And most of you in this room are going through life with your emergency brake on. And my extension of that is, many of you in this room wouldn't say shit if it was in your mouth. It's hard to believe. I can't. If I had shit in my mouth, I can't believe that I wouldn't say shit. Yet some of you remember the word nice is a 13th, 14th century derivative of a word that meant moron, retarded, slow. And when they called women nice, it was because they were one of those three or all three, and they used to put cages on their heads so they couldn't talk. Now, I know this sounds terrible in the 21st century, but that was a damn good idea, in my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me. So, whether you went to hardcore and you're here, and today's the last day, or you didn't, or whether you were in healthcare, IT, whatever, or you weren't, there's no reason, or another word you can use, excuse, for you not to be able to do this. We've got successes from cash and carry to, on the one hand, and on the other hand, slum landlords. Well, it happens to be the same person, but and we've all heard his story, and it's gratifying. It's to some of us, to me, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. But again, perhaps, hopefully, and I'm not going to give this as a guarantee, if you just edge towards my end of the continuum a little bit, if you just take your success a little bit more seriously than you do today, and to get to where I am more worried about your success than you are, you're not going to get up to my worry level for you, because I know what little mice, little people that are slow with autism and all the other things, because I've pulled these guys and these gals across the goal line. But until you want to pull yourself across the goal line, and until you want to take it more seriously, you're gonna struggle. Doesn't mean you're not gonna get rich in 5 years from now. But today, 5 years from now, doesn't do much for me. And I'm selfishly, although I'll probably always stay the $1 trillion man, even though we've done more than $1 trillion, I know the lifestyle changes that will occur. I know the difference between, making a few $100,000 or pounds or whatever a year and making a few million a year, what it does for you. I know, as I said, I think on the second day, couples like Sally and I have more choices. I'm not suggesting you do this. We don't have budgets. We don't look at how much, a Royal Suite costs. We don't look at, and I'm not saying that's for you. As we had the Asian dragon couple on a few weeks ago, Amber and John, she gave him a Rolls Royce, and he gave her a new Rolls Royce, and she gave him a new Ferrari. Now, that's not the kind of gifts you're swapping with your significant others. Now, I'm not saying that that's the thing to do, but they have the choice to do that. And I think that's pretty special, especially for two engineers that in the beginning overthought everything. They overthought QLA. They overthought everything, and now they just are running down the street, not indiscriminately, pulling the trigger and enjoying life. I just wanted you to remind you again, because I've got a couple more emails. I wish this was not the truth. Some of you in this room, this is where you're headed. I've been teasing him and his wife's second better husband, but it's not funny. Some of you have already experienced a little of this. You heard in the first webinar, you heard from Peter, not today, this afternoon. He says, I'm gone for a few weeks, and she cries, but, she either gets used to it or divorce. Now, not everybody that comes to the program or studies the program free on my website is willing to make that kind of sacrifice. And it's not for everybody, though. And I never said it was for everybody, and I said, it's for 1 in 10,000. But somebody, unfortunately, just by serendipity, is going to wind up with this. For those of you that aren't married or have a permanent relationship, you're fortunate. You're fortunate. But on the one hand, you don't have a relationship, but on the other hand, when you make money, all of a sudden you're going to be better looking. When you make money, wear better clothes, and drive better cars, all of a sudden a different class of significant other is going to look at you. You're the same fucking person. That's why a number of the people don't want to help me with the seminar because they don't want anybody to know they're rich. Sally says everybody wants the money, almost everybody, but hardly anybody wants the notoriety. You don't want to have to worry about your kids getting kidnapped. That's an ugly part of my life. But better my personality than some of your personalities. Some of your personalities in this room, although I'm sure you try to do the right thing if they were trying to steal you off your kids. All jokes aside, that they steal my daughter, they'll give her back in a day. But some of your personalities in this room couldn't cope with that. And the police, law enforcement aren't much good. And they'll tell you if the kid's gone 36 hours, they're probably dead. Now just imagine hearing that. And so that's why Sally also thinks that a lot of the people don't want the notoriety because they're not paying the right amount of tax. I think that's probably also true. But we are now going to hear Roberto. Goodbye, YouTube.